Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Great to welcome you in our YouTube stream today. Today, we will be showing you the next episode of the ALM webcasts. Last week, we have started with the ALM, stays for Application Lifecycle Management webcasts. And altogether, there are 4 webcasts distributed over 4 weeks. Today is our second episode. In the introductory session of the ALM for SAP S/4HANA Clouds series provided just a general comparison of SAP Cloud ALM and SAP Solution Manager. In the session today, our speaker Kai will take a closer look at how the ALM platforms support your SAP S/4HANA Cloud or RISE with SAP implementation projects. As I've already mentioned, our expert speaker is Kai Rademan, who is Senior Solution Expert for Application Lifecycle Management at SAP. My name is Larissa Brinkman from the SAP Global User Groups organization, and I'm your host for today. We kindly ask you to place your questions in the live chat, and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. The PDF of this session will be available under the same link in the description to this video. And the schedule of all sessions of the ALM series will be available in the chat a little bit later. I will place the direct links in the chat so for your convenience, so you can click immediately and set a reminder for you for the upcoming sessions. With this, I wish you great interaction and kindly ask Kai to take over.
Thank you, Larissa, and hello, everyone. Welcome to this next session regarding SAP Solution Manager or SAP Cloud ALM as the better solution for implementing and operating SAP S/4HANA Cloud. Today, I want to focus really on the implementation part, so implementing SAP S/4HANA Cloud with SAP Cloud ALM or SAP Solution Manager. Before doing so, I just have to briefly show you this disclaimer. Some of the statements that I will include in my presentation are forward-looking statements, and as all of you know, the future may turn out differently, so just be aware of this. So we have had some discussion on the first session of this series already regarding SAP Cloud ALM or SAP Solution Manager. However, we noticed there is just a general recommendation from SAP when to use what. And here we have seen that for the operations part, it's always promoted to use SAP Cloud ALM. Also for the implementation of SAP S/4HANA Cloud Public Edition, the easy recommendation was to use SAP Cloud ALM, but for the middle part, for implementing SAP S/4HANA Cloud Private Edition or for SAP S/4HANA on-premise or the SAP Business Suite, there the answer was not so easy. So we have to take a closer look here on what is the best solution to use. We have had some general discussions already, some general questions, which we discussed in the other session last week regarding this landscape, regarding the IT strategy, regarding cost, regarding timeline. But we have only briefly mentioned the question number 3, which functionality do you really need? And here today in this session, I want to drill down on this and discuss which functionality, application lifecycle management functionality, do you need for your SAP S/4HANA Cloud project or the RISE with SAP projects, and which of the ALM solutions does provide such functionality. Basically, one part of the answer is depending on your experience. If you are a customer that has used SAP Solution Manager before, and you are familiar with the functionality of SAP Solution Manager, then you have different expectations as customers who have not used a Solution Manager, but have used other application lifecycle management functionality, or some customers even use Excel spreadsheet or SharePoint solutions for managing their projects. So the first thing is always from where do you come? What are your expectations on this? And then you have to align these expectations with the functionality that is available in the different application lifecycle management options. But before doing this comparison, let me briefly switch over to the SAP S/4HANA SAP Cloud ALM system, to the SAP Cloud ALM system, to show you briefly how an implementation project can be run in SAP Cloud ALM. Basically, the foundation of project management is, of course, a project, as you can imagine. And let me switch to one of the projects here, which I have created for my demo today. Basically, the project is a container of all related information. And one thing is very important here if you start your project, that is the selection of the SAP Activate task template that you can use for the implementation project. The SAP Activate task templates are a list of all the activities that are required in an implementation project. Of course, you can enhance this list, or you can say some of these parts are not relevant, but it's really a very good approach to take this best practices from SAP and then say, I want to select this kind of project and choose the template for this. So here now we have an S/4HANA Cloud Private Edition implementation project for us, but the same is also available for S/4HANA Cloud Public Edition, for SAP S/4HANA Cloud On-Premise, or for other solutions from SAP. Then in the project, you can also define your time boxes, which are the phases of your project, which are the team members which are in the project, and which business processes do you want to use. And regarding the business projects, we have the scopes available for projects. You can, for example, define in a project which processes shall be included in the project. So on which processes do you want to focus while doing the implementation. So let's take a look at the processes which we have in our project now. For example, I have here a project taking out of the SAP best practice business processes which are delivered by SAP. So these best practice business processes, they contain a description of processes which are available. They contain accelerators like task tutorials, test scripts, and so ever. And they also contain the business process model notification of the process. So you can take this notification with your colleagues from the lines of business and discuss with them if the process runs as you want to have it. But you do not need to stick to the processes that have been delivered by SAP. You can also modify processes. So let me get to a process which I have changed here as preparation for this demo. Here in this case, you see that I have added one additional process steps, and both for the existing process steps as well as the additional added processes, you can define, for example, requirements. You can make notes to this that will help the colleagues in your implementation project, that they know what to do. You can define requirements. You can also create so-called user stories. User stories are used for kind of specifying what exactly shall be done to implement the requirement. You see here there is a rich text editor for describing the use case. You have links to subtasks that you can create, links to test cases. You even have links to documentation here for the API specification, for example, that can be used. And another very nice thing to mention here, that these documents are also related to features. A feature is a description of which transports belong to a change. So you see the list of the available transports that are used. You can, of course, also make sure that the test management is done. So I do not want to show you this here, but I just, due to the lack of time, but I just want to briefly show you that you not only do what you want to do, but you also have functionality for getting an overview. What is the status? What is the project? How is the project going? Here we have for these features which we have just seen an example, our case, the rollout 3.1 feature, which I have shown to you in the demo. You see also what is the status of the feature, where is it in the process. All this kind of information easily accessible in SAP Cloud ALM. And regarding easy access to the implementation, we can also go to the project overview dashboard in SAP Cloud ALM to get all the relevant KPIs that you need for managing your project. So this was just a brief overview about the functionality in SAP Cloud ALM. The functionality in SAP Solution Manager looks similar. However, there are some differences which I now want to explain to you, such that you can get a better understanding of which solution fits well to you. So both SAP Cloud ALM and SAP Solution Manager use the implementation content from the SAP Activate roadmap. So there is not a big difference here, except that meanwhile SAP Cloud ALM has more roadmaps availability, different versions for SAP S/4HANA Cloud or for SAP S/4HANA on-premise. This is due to the fact that SAP Cloud ALM takes them directly out of the repository which SAP provides for these roadmaps, whereas for Solution Manager, they have to first be somehow modified by SAP and then exported such that you can, as a customer, import them to SAP Solution Manager. The same is also true for both sides, that SAP Cloud ALM and SAP Solution Manager have access to the SAP best practice business processes. Here it is very strong. SAP Cloud ALM has access to 52 so-called solution scenarios out of the current enterprise architecture reference library that SAP provides, whereas for SAP Solution Manager, we currently only have 24 best practice solution packages available, and that shows that SAP Cloud ALM is really strongly aligned with the current repositories of SAP, whereas Solution Manager has been developed, started to be developed more than 20 years ago, and not all information which is available in Cloud ALM is available in SAP Solution Manager. So this is something that is similar, but there are some differences. But is also available. I have shown this to you briefly in SAP Cloud ALM as well in SAP Solution Manager. Here you see the screenshots from SAP Cloud ALM is to adapt the SAP standard practices. However, there is one thing different in the two platforms, and this is the way how the process versioning is done. In SAP Cloud ALM, you can take copies of business processes, but here you only have two versions available, the published versions and the published version. If you change it, you will create a draft version, which will replace the old published version if you publish the draft version. So this is a very simple versioning concept in SAP Cloud ALM. In SAP Solution Manager, we have the so-called branch concept, where we have a better possibilities for doing the versioning. You can have multiple versions in parallel with of a business process on the SAP Solution Manager side. Another difference between SAP Cloud ALM and SAP Solution Manager for implementation projects is the documentation flow, or more the object flow. On SAP Cloud ALM side, we have just one plain flow here from the requirements, where you define what is needed, to the user stories, where you and finally the features that are used for doing the the transport into the production system. On SAP Solution Manager, and here especially with the Focus Build add-on, we have different change types that are supported that use different pre-configured workflows to implementing this. So if you want to have more choice, then SAP Solution Manager is the answer. If you want to go straight forward, then SAP Cloud ALM is the easier solution. Related to this is also the question which workflows are available here. And here the SAP Cloud ALM and SAP Solution Manager have two very different approaches. So SAP Cloud ALM tries to provide a simple workflow concept with flexibility. You are not forced, for example, to use user stories in your process. You can just go directly from a requirement to the project task, or other customers prefer not using any documented requirements, but go directly via the user story to the project task. So here you have really flexibility in how to set up the workflow. On the other side, on SAP Solution Manager, Focused Build and Focused Insights, and there you have detailed pre-configured workflows. And what is very important here is that there is a very strict process governance. So it's not easy to change the workflow as it has been pre-configured. If you want to have a strict governance, then of course SAP Solution Manager is the better option. Another difference is the solution documentation, or how the solution documentation is handled. Basically, the general concept is the same on both sides. So the documentation is done according to the business processes that you have defined on the systems, and you have the possibility to author these best practices as well. We have discussed this already. However, the key difference between Cloud ALM and Solution Manager regarding the documentation is that in SAP Solution Manager, there are different document types set known already, and you can upload a Word document for different document types which will get different notifications. Then on SAP Cloud ALM, the documentation can only be separated. The kind of documentation can only be separated via tagging. So you can tag documentation as whatever type you want, and then search for this specific things. So it is handled differently on SAP Cloud ALM. And another very significant differentiation between Cloud ALM and Solution Manager is that in the in SAP Solution Manager, we have a document management system, so you can store the documentation directly in SAP Solution Manager. In SAP Cloud ALM, on the other side, you have no document management within SAP Cloud ALM, but you can store the documentation files on other document management systems or SharePoint. which many customers of us use here, and then just link to these documents from the SAP Cloud ALM. Next topic I want to talk about is the custom code management. SAP Solution Manager has a very large functionality for dealing with custom code. The so-called custom code lifecycle management offers a lot of functionality. In SAP Cloud ALM, we have no custom code management. The reason for this is at the time when we started developing SAP Cloud ALM, at that time there was some custom code management functionality available already as cloud services available for customers of SAP. And the decision was not to reinvent the wheel, not to reprogram functionality in SAP Cloud ALM, but just to ask customers that want to deal with the custom code management to use these existing custom code management cloud services, which can be easily used combined with the SAP Cloud ALM, because both of them are provide cloud services and make the integration possible. The only thing that is not available in Cloud ALM plus the cloud services is the decommissioning cockpit. SAP Solution Manager has a decommissioning cockpit. This for getting rid of old custom code. This functionality is not available as cloud services or within SAP Cloud ALM, just for you to be aware of if you think about whether to use SAP Cloud ALM or SAP Solution Manager. Then let's take a look at test management. What are the differences here? Basically, creation of test cases and manual test execution is the same at both sides. At the moment, this would be changed in just in the near future. Test plans are only available in SAP Solution Manager. Test plans are used to group test cases, and we use these groupings in multiple test cycles. In SAP Cloud ALM, we just have at the moment a little workaround. This is grouping test cases via tagging. So you can create a tag for each test plan, so to say, and assign this tag to all the test cases that shall belong there. Test automation is another thing where, at least currently, it is not identical on both sides. SAP Solution Manager has the so-called test automation framework with the component-based test automation. Here we have the possibility to integrate third-party test tools as well as SAP test tools, ECAT, for example, in the testing. And for Solution Manager customers, there is also an integration possible with the Tricentis test automation for SAP, which is part of on-premise maintenance agreements of SAP as well. On Cloud ALM, we can do a test automation as well, but at the moment only with the SAP S/4HANA Cloud Public Edition, which has included its own test automation tool. And this test automation tool can integrate with SAP Cloud ALM already today. the same interfaces for integrating this SAP S/4HANA Cloud test automation tool are open also for third-party test automation tools. There were some test automation tool providers working on the integration already, but today there is no solution that is available on the market for using this. And then, of course, there are some other things. The defect management is simpler on Cloud ALM than on SAP Solution Manager. There is, at least at the moment, less analytics available, and also the business process change analyzer, a test optimization tool, which is part of SAP Solution Manager. There is nothing comparable available in SAP Cloud ALM. Next topic is then the technical change control. How do you make sure that changes that you do on a development or on a quality assurance system come to the production system or to the productive service of your SAP S/4HANA cloud system? Here, both SAP Cloud ALM and SAP Solution Manager support the main transport management systems which we have in the SAP environment. The difference here is that Solution Manager also support the Git-enabled CTS, which is not done by SAP Cloud ALM. But on the other side, SAP Cloud ALM is working on the integration of the adaptation transport organizer, which is part of SAP S/4HANA Cloud, a public edition for better managing transports, though this is currently not planned for SAP Solution Manager. Then there are also similar, but not exactly the same approaches for traceability, changes for release management, but the Cloud ALM, as I have discussed with you already beforehand when we talked about the document flows in Cloud ALM, we only have one standard change control workflow and multiple change control workflows on the Solution Manager side. That is one thing. And what is, at least for some customers, crucial when comparing Solution Manager and Cloud ALM, SAP Cloud ALM at the moment does not provide advanced deployment control, retrofit, quality gates, cross-system object lock, electronic signatures. These are things that at least at some customers who work under regulated environments are required. If this is relevant for you, if this is urgently required by regulations for you, then probably SAP Solution Manager is the better option. On the other side, if you do not have such strong requirements regarding the technical change control, then we have multiple customers happy already today with what SAP Cloud ALM can do for you. And finally, one point relevant for the implementation project is the analytics. You do not just want to do what you have to do, but you also want to show what you have done in reporting. You want to check if everything is okay regarding the project progress. This is enabled through analytics. there is some analytics available in Cloud ALM. We have seen this in the demo beforehand. There is more analytics available in SAP Solution Manager. There are multiple dashboards related to implementation functionality. But let me briefly mention this here as well. For SAP Cloud ALM, we have also the option to integrate with dashboarding tools like SAP Analytics Cloud or reporting tools, or with Grafana, an open source dashboarding tool. So here the open cloud approach of SAP Cloud ALM provides these options. So we have seen, or I have told you, SAP Solution Manager at the moment has more functionality for implementation than SAP Cloud ALM has. However, this is just the one side. The other side is the cost. What do you need to pay for this? And basically, Cloud ALM and Solution Manager are included in your maintenance or in your cloud subscription fees. So you do not need to pay licenses for these tools, but you have to pay other things as well. And especially for Solution Manager, you have to take care about the hardware and infrastructure. You have to deploy agents. You have to operate the Solution Manager. You have to deploy regularly deploy nodes, support packages, and so on. So this all sums up to costs as well, which are not available on, which are not existing on SAP Cloud ALM side, because SAP Cloud ALM is a pure cloud solution. SAP takes care of all of this. You only have to take care about the configuration and user onboarding on both sides. But here I can also tell you that for Cloud ALM, this is less effort for doing the configuration compared to doing this for SAP Solution Manager. And then there were just some additional costs, mainly on SAP Cloud ALM side. You have to pay for additional memory in case if you use Cloud ALM extensively. However, if you would compare this with the on-premise SAP Solution Manager, you would not need to subscribe for additional memory, but you have to invest in additional hardware there as well. So this is the comparison on this side. On Solution Manager side, I have mentioned already that for those customers that do not have on-premise maintenance agreements with SAP, there is no usage right for SAP Solution Manager. If you want to use SAP Solution Manager anyway, you only can do this via a subscription of HEC or SAP Enterprise Cloud Services to get access to an SAP Solution Manager. And this subscription is also a significant cost factor which has to be taken into your consideration. So it's really your choice which of the ALM platforms is better for you, for your SAP S/4HANA Cloud or RISE with SAP implementation. And yet you just have to decide, is it enough for you having a plain document flow, or do you need to spend more money for the pre-configured change types which are available on the Solution Manager side? Do you need a strict process governance? Then a Solution Manager is in favor. if you just want to have a simple Cloud ALM workflow, then the left hand of this graphic is the right for you. The same for the change control. Is standard change control sufficient, or do you need advanced deployment control? And yeah, also, do you want to have more a cloud-based solution? SAP Cloud ALM has been designed for the cloud with providing standard functionality, whereas SAP Solution Manager has been designed for on-premise, providing a lot of functionality, which gives you the chance to set up your ALM processes very individually. So this is really what you have to decide how much you want to spend for your application lifecycle management. Basically, let me just close this with a look at the transition strategy from the perspective of those of you who have used SAP Solution Manager before, or who are using SAP Solution Manager before. The implementation part of the transition strategy is here on the right-hand side. For the implementation, SAP recommends to do the change of ALM platform at your own pace, so you can continue using SAP Solution Manager if you are in an ongoing project, if the functionality is not sufficient for you yet, then there is no need to change immediately. But if you have smaller projects, or if you are in a larger company with, for example, different subsidiaries that have smaller independent projects, then SAP Cloud ALM could be an implementation, a good implementation methodology, a good implementation tool for those parts, but there is no hurry to switch over everything to Cloud ALM immediately. However, on the other side, if you more take a look at the operations and service delivery functionality of Cloud ALM, then SAP recommends to at least try it out now, take a look at it. And this is also what I want to do with you next week at the same time, and the week after. Then we will have additional sessions on the operations and service and IT service management part of application lifecycle management for SAP S/4HANA Cloud. So stay tuned, and with this, I want to thank you for listening, and Larissa, please open the question and answer series.
All right, thank you, Kai. Thank you for this session with a lot of information on, that is helpful for decision making. And I can only encourage our audience to bring up the questions in the chat so Kai can answer them directly. So in the meanwhile, as we are waiting for questions in the chat, I have actually gathered some questions beforehand, as I'm also in the discussions with customers, and there were some questions that were brought up, and one of these questions is, does SAP Cloud ALM support agile implementation projects?
Yeah, thank you for this question, whoever raised it. The answer is yes, absolutely. We have the support of agile projects also as a key principle of SAP Cloud ALM. So you might have seen when I talked about the project management that we have also had a possibility to create or to define sprints for doing this. So there is, I would even guess, more customers using SAP Cloud ALM for agile implementation projects than for traditional waterfall projects.
All right, thank you for that. I also assume that a lot of projects are following now this agile approach. So this is helpful information also for our audience. One more question that are raised often is it possible to install SAP Solution Manager add-ons like Focus Build and Focus Insights on SAP Cloud ALM? How about those add-ons?
Yeah, this is here I have to answer. SAP Solution Manager and SAP Cloud ALM are completely distinct. So there is a different functional base. Solution Manager is developed in ABAP. SAP Cloud ALM is developed in Java only, and therefore it does not work if we take a add-on or extension from the one side and just deploy it on the other side. So unfortunately, this is not possible to add a focused build add-on on SAP Cloud ALM.
All right, thank you for that. Also, you know, sometimes it's good to have some clarity if the answer is no. Yes, I can't see more questions in the chat. So then one more question that was raised from another audience, but maybe it's also applicable here. Does it make sense to use SAP Cloud ALM and SAP Cloud Solution Manager in parallel?
Yeah, of course, it depends on the customer situation. But if you have both larger projects running, larger implementation projects running, and then you have some smaller things you want to implement in parallel, then it would be an option to say, I do this smaller projects already with Cloud ALM, but I continue my larger projects till the end with SAP Solution Manager. So this is one case of using this in parallel. And another example here would be to say, I continue using the Solution Manager for my implementation, for my ongoing implementation project, but I can start already today with SAP Cloud ALM for operations and for service delivery. And yeah, I will be happy to let you know more about this next week in the next session of our series. So I hope this answers your question here as well.
Thank you very much. And I'm actually very good that you mentioned that session that we plan next week. I've just posted the information on the upcoming session, and feel free to set the reminder for the next week. Next week, we will talk about operating SAP S/4HANA Cloud. And so don't miss this opportunity. And we will have the same speaker. It will be Kai, and he will be, of course, bring in new aspects in the topic, and he have already, as he did an introduction session and the session today, so of course he has some connection between all the sessions. And yes, we have the question from the audience in the chat. Where can I find free information to learn more about ALM?
Yeah, this is very easy, at least as far as Larissa has told me. We have prepared a list of links to free accessible information regarding all related topics. So just look at the session description in YouTube. You will find links to places like the SAP support portal, like the documentation for SAP Cloud ALM, like for trainings and Open SAP, all available for you for free.
Right. So I'm just writing in the chat for those who are also interested to learn more about ALM. Please check the session description to this video. As Kai already mentioned, we have an additional links to the resources there. Right. So I can't see additional questions. With this, thank you, Kai, very much for this session, for all the additional information that you have provided. And I would like to thank our audience for joining today, for asking your questions, for bringing up topics. And please stay tuned with us next week. Set a reminder for the session, and the last session of this small series will be on March 8th, and I will also post it now in the chat. So we are really complete with the sessions. With this, again, thank you very much. Great to have you in our session. We hope the session was valuable with all the information, and I will close the session now and hope to welcome you next week. Thank you, Kai, and thank you, everybody. With this, bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye. See you next week.
So